Hey, it is your buddy, Peace and Harmony with you here today. Much love going out to all the beautiful, empowered harmonizers. We are zooming in and focusing in on a great viewer question that we just got in, and that is, can you please discuss and go into what a lack of empathy does in a relationship? In other words, how does it play out? It's so important to understand how certain components of a relationship play out. In other words, what does it leave you with realistically to have? Not just to get fooled, to get misled, caught up in the head, believing, them, believing for the future, just sort of having this anticipation for the future, or even the release of emotional pain can be enough. The narcissist will not have an empathy. So for those sort of connections, if they're not actively creating an empathetic connection, so let's just circle back. So empathy means you're respecting and acknowledging and validating of another person's presence, their being, and who they are. So if you're open to that, which is essential for human being connection, is to have that heart to heart channel, almost like a big, just a big cord, like a big green cord that's just filled with energy and light and happiness. It's just a be state. So we're not talking about anything you have to do, anything you have to struggle or try, where it's it's in a still state. So that be state, just of who you are right there in your being, in your essence. That's one aspect and one part of it, one spark of it, that divine, just to be still and not to have clutter running through is okay. Even though it seems like everyone is running around trying to just don't even let that impair you or hold you back or concern you or bother you at one little bit. I mean, don't even allow that to have any impact on your being, because your being is where the fire, the passion, and the clarity is. And there's no guilt in that space, and it does not need anything to come up against it, and to sort of get into a conflict over. It is what it is. It is there. And so the more you can acknowledge it, the more you can shake hands with it, so to speak, the more you can feel it resonating and allowing and having that tingling presence, which is your heart. There's a lot of electrical, we're electrical beings, there is a lot of electricity around the heart. So when you have that in empathy, you're having those moments, just even if it's like checking in with a child. Are you okay? It's heart-based. It doesn't have to be, are you a good student? Are you have enough friends? Do you have enough sports? Do you have enough this? Are you going to go to... It's not with all that sort of weighing on it. So eliminate all those sort of thoughts that tend to trouble, to try to make you feel that you need to be the best mom. All those sort of, just allow that to just stop. When you get into your B state, that is really your heart, and then that's where the empathy is. And people want to share this with others. So when you feel that, you feel acknowledgement and you feel validation. And so if you have not experienced that, so an empathetic person would know, hey, the proper thing is to check in. How are you doing? Hey, do you have lunch? Hey, you're in a relationship with this person or creating a relationship. Hey, do you want to go to the movies? Do you, how are you feeling? What are you up to today? How did it go last night? What are you doing for dinner? How is your garden? These just sort of consideration, checking in with the feelings of another and knowing what is of value to another and being able to acknowledge and validate it without feeling threatened. Someone showing you their family pictures. You're not going, oh God, I wish I had this. You're just allowing it to be. And then, you'll say, oh, wow, that photography is really cool. And then maybe you want to then become a photographer. So allowing moments to inspire you is important. And that's part of empathy. That's part of the aftermath of how healthy empathy plays out. So when you're acknowledging and validating, like someone's cooking, oh, wow, that is really tasty, and then you then begin to sort of pick up your own cooking or have your own style or something that involves in you. That is a positive outcome of healthy empathy. We're acknowledging and validating each other's strengths. So this can happen in high school. This can happen at all levels of your life, your professional development, your personal development, your health, what you're doing, how you're spending your time is really a large reflection of empathy and those others that you have around. Because when you reflect it back, then you sort of increase it, you grow it, you ignite it, you cause it to fly, allow it to soar, you allow it to be in the positive, take on its full energy presence, if you will, in its glory. In other words, you're living life, you're like you're surfing the positive, light, you're surfing the positive. And even if you're brushing your teeth, just taking a breath, thinking about what you're going to do, it is there with you. You're living in it. You're acknowledging and validating its presence. So that is empathy. And then how you change things up, what you do and pursue, you allow yourself these things. That's the healthy outcome. Now, when you're with someone who is narcissistic, they're not into the positive check-in. They're not into the, hey, how you doing? They're not trying to meet you where you are. They're trying to be blind and numb to who you are. In fact, if they wish, they could try to re-educate you to be someone who they want you to be, which they're trying to change you. And this is like all back in the day from the levels of maturity. I want to, so you need to realize that, that is an exercise of futility, meaning that's just going to be what I call negative orderly direction, thinking, feeling, and behaving, and becoming. It's taking you somewhere where you don't need to be. It's better just to be, and to be still, and to be in that zone, that positive, and just even being still, than it is to completely think and try to, just sort of mash teeth and go down that and wonder why it's just going to exercise a futility, and it's a waste of your energy, your own personal positive heart energy. You have to be conservative, bring it and rein it back in and claim it as your own. It's a feeling, it's a physiology that you get with, your heart excited, just to be liberated, just to be free of that hurt, of not being related to with empathy. So when it's lack of empathy, you're not getting those positive outcomes, is contrary to the healthy. You're not getting someone who looks at you with respect. It's something that you can feel. Even as a child, no matter how, how young, how old, it's demonstrable. You can demonstrate, it's how you carry yourself with respect versus with disrespect. If you have been violated in the past, you might be carrying around a lot of lack of self-respect. So you might then have empathy for others who are lacking self-respect and want to help them. But anyway, so if you are dealing with someone who's narcissistic or psychopathic, who is not doing that or is manipulating you in a way that is communicating in a way that is manipulative, to serve them and not to liberate and strengthen you and to be clear, then the lack of empathy will give a lack of life. It's almost as if the eyes of others are like sunlight to your soul to help it grow, and to water it and give it those, those nutrients of light, that help it to grow, those natural elements. It's as if they want to keep that being state in the dark, in a closet, not able to show its head, not able to show itself. There is, and so that is what lack of empathy does. It doesn't acknowledge it and validate that life light, if you will. Light is the way to describe that awareness, that consciousness, that alignment with the divine, where it's just a be state that is good, strong, and in the positive, and then you're drawing more of that to you in your lifestyle, and your thoughts are in the clear and not labored down by all that which should not be running in the mind. It's not meant to be snap, crackle, and popping there. It's not meant to be, it's like a toxic, like a factory, that they say that spills out, harmful chemicals and they're polluting a river. I mean, that's kind of like what the energy does of a lack of empathy. It's like, I don't care. they'll pollute your energetic space. They'll be disrespectful. They'll violate your boundaries. They will, raise their voice. They will, take your personal items and treat them with disrespect as if they're not yours, that you don't really have control over anything. They sort of reflect back a negative image or a negative mirror, which can be very dark, and very heavy, and very judgmental, and sort of not meeting their standards. So a narcissist, because they lack empathy and that sort of checking in status and then giving you the time of day, like, in other words, now let's see how you can cook. Let's see, let's develop your thing, instead of like them demanding of you, why don't you tell me a story when you're not a good storyteller? Why don't you play the piano if you're not a good piano player? Why don't you decorate the living room? And you're not a good decorator, you're better on the computer. They're sort of hold sort of a negative pointed speech to you, and just sort of hold, just sort of a lead, just sort of poker into your heart space, instead of it being energetically strong, opening your heart with care, love, and consideration, and to feel them, and that it's okay. It's not going to detract from you. The narcissist is always like, if you take your eyes off of me, that's wrong to them. That's taking away from their power. So if they are to connect with your heart space and be able to take the time to be still with you and to be present with you, and to, hey, now it's your turn to cook. Hey, now it's your turn to talk about your day, and to give you a chance to live in that B state and then validate that, then that little plant will grow. It's getting the sun. It's, it's getting that, there's a fellowship. All sorts of cultures have different names for, it's like satisfying a lifeblood in you. It's keeping you alive, happy, vibrant. It's, high energy. They call it, into a high vibrancy where life is at its best. It's a feel-good state, I would say, for you. Something that feels good, that you're not going to lose, not afraid of losing it. In the narcissist, everything is sort of conditional, and the relationships are how you reflect onto them. So you don't even have sort of ownership of your own life, if you will. They want you to look this way for them, and then they'll take credit for your accomplishments, and you don't really get a chance of ownership of your own, because they don't acknowledge, they don't have empathy for you. They can't express it, so they can't connect there. So you feel that you don't own anything. You feel that you don't have anything. You feel that you're sort of an imposter. You're a step in. Viewers talk about the imposter syndrome. I mean, all this sort of blends into all the stuff that we're talking about, but with different labels. When you feel that you don't own your accomplishments, people give you a compliment, and you're just like, what do you mean I look good? You can't own the positive. You're in a negative validated state. It's like you have a negative self-bias. These are all different states that have been, oftentimes taught to you, or expressed or extended energetically. So there's an energetic extension of empathy. In other words, when you're expressing empathy, if you could probably measure the energy in the room, you can feel, just like when they talked about we recently went through an impeachment trial, and that, the energy in the room, they talk the energy here, the energy of the room, so it's people's concentration. It's a B state, and in the truth, like in divine order. In other words, it's sustainable, it's real, it's not harmful. And so the empathy, rather than it enlivening and energizing and being able to flow and function, to a degree of, with a narcissist who's lacking empathy, they're not having that sort of validation of you. It's just like, you're going to be this way for me, and so it is. All they want to hear from you is what they want to hear from you. So it's like the external locus of control is what's problematic for that other individual. They're not in control, and they don't feel that they are in control of themselves, their heart, that they can't live on, they can't live on their own. They can't make friendships. They don't feel empowered, strong, they feel the opposite, meek. So if you're treated with lack of empathy, I think for a lot of people, it feels like part of them dies. Part of them is not able to live. Part of them just sort of withers away. Like a plant that had a broken leaf and it just doesn't get the nutrients and it just withers and dies. So people feel that maybe part of themselves, because they haven't gotten that energy, that emotional sort of exposure. It's, they don't want you to, quote unquote, expose yourself emotionally, be who you are emotionally. They can't handle it. They don't have the time. It's stupid to them. Oh, I mean, the psychopath will tell you, even with their supply, the people they're married to, in business with, that they're stupid. They just don't know what I know, so they'll admit to that. And what are you going to do is really the question, is to understand it, because the lack of empathy, to me, it's like withholding a life energy from somebody's essence, their soul. So you have to kind of acknowledge the fact that you have a soul, that could be probable or possible, and that you're a human being. And so we have to get back to the basics, being, and then what it means to be human, which is very complex on many levels. I mean, it's just ridiculously complex, or made to be nowadays. We need to go back to the simple. I mean, it's so funny because, now you talk about the restaurants, the new things are the farm to table. Well, that's what they used to do back in the day. I mean, the farmers would, hook up their trucks, and if they were in, the vegetables, they would just load up the back of their own pickup trucks with turnips or corn, delivered to the grocery store. No plastic bags, none of this, zero footprint. I mean, so what I'm trying to say is that you have to look then at the lifestyle that the narcissist has inoculated in. If you are living without empathy, that you might find your life becoming way too complicated. It's too conditional. There's too much carbon footprint to it. There's too many conditions that need to be met. Do you have this going on? Do you have that going on? Are you into this? All these judgments that you can't even speak up for yourself. So I think if you haven't been around people who have shown enough empathy, you feel that you don't get to speak up enough. You don't speak up enough. You don't have a clue how your voice should be. Maybe you're getting now addicted to the painkillers or whatever else is going on in the news, and that's the hot addiction, the opioids, people then fall and succumb to this. Gosh, I mean, it's just the impact of lack of empathy is very profound. I think a lot of people don't know how to fight against it also, because having empathy is someone, having a heart, acknowledging you. You can, something you can feel in a room, at your workplace, or at the grocery store. Your eye might catch somebody. And I talk about this on your recovery date, how important it is for you to sort of acknowledge and validate that. When we talk about quantum healing, we're talking about taking conscious awareness when those present themselves to you, and acknowledge and validate it. In other words, put the knowledge in the right place. Put the I am in the right place. Put the, feel that tingle and give it the right, something positive. But then if you've got a lot of negative trying to pull you back, you might not continue to pay attention to that positive, which is meant for you, your life purpose, your path, your abundance, you being taken care of, you being healthy, you being abundant. Maybe you want to have, financial wealth, relationship wealth, these things sort of blooming and expressing, and following up and living in that space, and then being around that. Napoleon Hill calls it the mastermind, how important it is to surround yourself with like-minded people. And I mean, he should also add in there like-hearted people, as well, because that will enliven your heart. It's very therapeutic. It's very important that you are able to experience this. And it might be scary. You might shy away from it. So you can take little steps. You can take big steps. But you do want to keep a momentum. If you are not, if empathy is not extended, you feel that you don't really sort of have a future. I mean, empathy is where you sort of express a vision for another person. You share a vision, you share communication. You can talk about the facts, and you can also talk about, the fun things, the real things that count. Maybe you've had great memories. Maybe there is, a great thing that a storm that you experienced, and then here's a picture that you took. Whoa, and then another person shares that, whoa, and that's empathy. You're sharing that I am, and then, ooh, that was fun, and then you're getting that juice, and everything is okay, and then your bones no longer hurt, your muscles no longer hurt, you're no longer getting the tension headaches, you're no longer suffering from adrenal fatigue, you no longer have these thoughts cluttering up your mind like the mud of the waters. You stop the thinking, you don't have any of those, thoughts running through, there's water of emotion going up there. Fires can't exist. The heart is filled it up, and the wires just don't, the thoughts don't even need to be begun. You don't need to strengthen yourself from overthinking. Get rid of that belief that you think your way out of this one. It is empathy. It is of heart. It is, it is so vital that you consider, another's feelings, another's desires, needs. And then when in that very act, I believe, of acknowledging, you give it life, you give it energy, you give it like sunlight for that little plant. If you put the plant in the you don't put, I heard someone say, you don't put baby in the corner. It's a similar thing. So I feel that part of the heart will die. Part of the that being will feel an acknowledgement that there's something off here. So your being, which is alive and is always there, is kind of seeing that front like a layer of an onion. If part of your heart is hurt, you might have felt very alone as a child, or maybe you were scolded and put in a corner, told you were a dunce, told you were whatever it was, boy or girl, male or female. And so your soul is like acknowledging there's like a small layer outside that's seeing that there was a wrong, there was a violation, and that's what that feeling was from, and that was just kind of, it's in that time, but you don't want to continue to bring that hurt in through other layers of the onion, if you will. You might have been treated with lack of empathy, lack of care, people being disrespectful, again, violating of boundaries, as if, you don't have any presence. I mean, this could be a whole series of, it's a great question. Lacking empathy. If you don't acknowledge and validate someone's feelings and then allow it to express itself, because that's what empathy is. Someone that you meet at a store or your work or in your everyday, they might be there to just share a story, and then that's you can feel the empathy. So, you need that for kinship. You need that for it to feel connection. So you feel some degree of warmth. Without it feels very cold. It feels very competitive. It feels that you're not good enough, that you have to constantly improve. It's not okay to just be. The hamburger can't just be the hamburger. It has to have kale, and then, whatever, it sometimes just to be is okay, but the narcissist does not want to oftentimes be in that state, to be a human being, because they don't like to feel level. They don't like to feel content. They're not contented people. So oftentimes they'll mirror back discontent. It's really discontent with themselves, but what it is, they're mirroring back what seems to be discontent with you when they're really discontented within themselves. So it's just a projection mechanism. Because of lack of empathy, they project onto others all their insecurities, their fears, their concerns, which oftentimes they harbor a ton of. But, you might feel it, and you might feel responsible for their problems because they sort of associate you with part of the problem. So you then sort of feel that you have to fix their ills, but that's part of the pathology and that's part of the thinking, and you have to step away from that. You just have to realize that that's just sort of, it's kind of like a tornado. When you see a tornado spinning, and then there's like pieces of roof and then pieces of chair, tires flowing through, you just sort of get knocked by it. And then as soon as you step out of that wind tunnel that's circling, you just sort of go, wow, man, And then, but as a bystander, you kind of feel that maybe you want to go help and put it back together. Just, you have to not indulge that feeling, to go and be as a bystander, and just say, don't indulge that feeling. And I have a very good tool for that. And so, do not indulge that feeling of needing to go and do that. You need to give unto yourself. That same heart that you have empathy for that storm, you need to turn that around towards yourself. What can I do to, get down and crouch down and help myself? What is it that I need to do to help rebuild, or just keep as is and just keep that flow going, that status quo going, and know that it's going to grow and that I can do this with grace and ease, and just and that being simple and at ease is okay, even if that's not mirrored back to you with empathy from others or this individual. You need to be able to carry that and then be able to then get into outside support systems, where there's people at school, your grocery store, your church, your local community college, other opportunities where you just go out and see people, the library, wherever you go and shop. You do your things, you have different things that you visit, podcasts and such. Fill up yourself with the knowledge and the feelings so that you can take it to the next level, and grow, and not just make it, but make it with the bells and the whistles that you want. And it doesn't have to be overdone. It needs to be plausible. It needs to be realistic. All the clutter, just let all their clutter whisk away. Let that, don't, try to call the alarms for everybody else, even though other people always want to, warn people about them. The lack of empathy can lead to a lot of chaos, a lot of destruction, a lot of very high energy in the wrong direction. It can lead to a lot of loss of property, a lot of loss of shelter, a lot of broken families, a lot of broken organizations, and really a broken world. And so, but you do have to be really strong to have empathy. To have empathy means you look on those who are different from you, and then you realize and recognize that they are a person just like you. They have the same needs, concerns, worries, and to not carry judgment in, but so you have to be balanced with empathy. You have to not give all yourself away. What happens in codependency and narcissists is that, they end up giving away all of themselves to this person. They have so much empathy that they end up giving everything away, and then they're sort of left with nothing, and then wondering why that narcissist isn't giving in return, because they're just the takers, and so that's going to be their pattern. And it can be very destructive because it can take away a lot of your juice, your happiness, your joy, your dream energy. And so the real deal, the real dream will manifest and create, but even better once you follow that pod thinking, positive, orderly direction thinking, feeling, and becoming. Even if it feels that it's very slow, even though you're just carrying and maintaining it, you're right on track. You are on it. You are on the job. You are on top of the heap. You are on it. And so that is enough. Just to be responsible for that little bit is enough empowerment, because that leads to greater things. That's where the inspiration, those new ideas, the solutions start coming in gently, gracefully, and not problematic with struggling and hardness and all sorts of difficult decisions. Life does not have to be laden with that. But if there's lack of empathy in your relationships, you're going to get a lot more of that clamor, clanging, unpleasant tension, and conflict. So you really have to say, I can't even break the ice with these folks. I have to just allow myself to be, and that is pleasure enough. And then you will draw to, though, people with like minds that can, be like a mastermind, that can help, create part of that divine spark and that happiness and restore that for you. But part of that withering self, you have to be able to give it gracefully away, and let it go. And it'll create sort of, a little bit of depth, and you're seasoned, in life. You've got sort of a a wisdom about you. You know, it's something that you can own, a character builder, if you will, that makes you into who you are. And, and then that respect will begin to then, emerge and shine from you. You will begin to develop self-respect. It's your buddy, Peace and Harmony, with you here today. I hope that these videos do help. Please share, please subscribe, and please donate for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support. Have a beautiful day. Peace out.